Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. My name is Whitney Ziegler. I'm the CEO and founder of Big Rocks Organizing. We are a proud, locally owned, queer-owned professional organizing and move management company in the Portland, Oregon metro area and beyond. And thank you for being here tonight. This is our monthly series called Ask the Organizer. Tonight, we're going to talk about how to right size sentimental items and photos. Those are two of the most difficult, challenging things that our clients encounter or that we encounter with our clients. And so we're excited to talk about that with you tonight. If you have any burning questions, feel free to jump in at any time, whether it's in the chat or you'd like to ask your question live. You can raise your real hand, your electronic hand. Kayla and Jean from our team will help me keep an eye on questions. With that, Kayla, would you like to introduce yourself really quickly?
Yes, I'm Kayla. I'm a professional organizer with Big Rocks. I'm also part of our marketing team. And yeah, I'm excited for this topic. I would consider myself kind of a minimal person, but also a very sentimental person. So I feel like this is a tricky topic for a lot of folks, especially when we're working with clients in their homes. I feel like photos, sentimental papers, sentimental clothing, these categories come up a lot.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you as my wing person tonight, Kayla. And we also have Oliver. I'll turn off my filters so you can see him. He'll be helping us tonight as well. So you can see my guest room slash office. Oh, there's Oliver just streaked in and out of there. He's going to help us with our mystery box. This box contains some of the most sentimental, hardest items to right size. So I thought we'd just dive right in. If we were in person, I'd have each of you pick something out of the box and that would be fun. So sorry, I'll have to pick it for you tonight. But again, if there are any specific items, sentimental items that you're wondering about, please don't hesitate to ask. So the first thing Oliver's helping me pull out of the box is a book. I don't know if anyone else in here has difficulty letting go of books. I know I sure do. Yeah, I see a bunch of hands go on. Kaylin, would you like to share any tips? And everyone who's here, please feel free to share resources, tips. If you've already right-sized your personal library or your book collection and you have some tips or resources to share, please jump in.
Yeah, books are a beloved category for a lot of people. I also am a huge reader, and so this is kind of, I feel like an ongoing process of me figuring out which books are important to me, which books I can let go of. I think something that has helped me is kind of giving myself parameters. For example, this one or two bookshelves, that is my book collection. And you can make those determinations for yourself based on your own space, but I find it helpful to have some sort of goal or boundary with books so that if you're bringing in new ones, it can be a good time to go through and reevaluate the ones you do have. I think another thing that has really helped me is the library system, knowing that even if I let go of a beloved book, it is very possible that I can find that again very easily and for free through the library. So those are kind of some initial tips.
Fantastic. I know for me, if I have a book and it's been on my shelf or next to my bed for 6 months or more, that's one of my criteria. Then I donate it to the library if I haven't read it yet, because my pile can keep growing and growing and growing, and I have good intentions of reading them. But because it's a good problem to have that there's so many great books out there that we can read, but we only have a finite amount of time. So being selective and setting parameters for myself too can be helpful. For me too, something that was helpful was knowing that if I give my book to the library or to a friend or someone who, like, someone else will appreciate it and I can release it into the universe rather than have it sitting on my shelves collecting dust. So we've got some activity in the chat. Sue shares, I have 189 boxes of books in storage after getting rid of some boxes. Way to go, letting go of some boxes, Sue. That's great. Keep at it, and hopefully tonight will help inspire you to keep rolling. Sue also says that Washington County keeps getting rid of books, so they do interlibrary loans for free. That's really great to know. Um, Jillia has donated books, her own and her clients. The little libraries that you see popping up in different neighborhoods are a good place to donate books. Buy nothing. She also listens to audiobooks for free from the library and checks books out from the library and donates books to elementary and middle school libraries too. I'm curious to hear other people's thoughts. Where have you let your books go to, or do you have specific challenges and struggles in letting go of your books? Melissa says, old books, could they be worth thousands of dollars? Haha, but seriously, value. Who wants them? Good question. My understanding from having done this for 10 years is that most books do not have a significant amount of value and they need to be in good condition or be like a first edition. We can definitely point you towards resources if you want to have an expert take a look at your books, but unfortunately, most of them don't turn out to have a lot of monetary value. And a lot of people too are like sensitive and allergic to dust these days. So I find more and more people are reading ebooks or listening to audiobooks, and the old books can contain quite a bit of dust or mold even. Yes, I agree, Jillia. Old books are a conundrum. And Kirsten, hopefully I'm pronouncing people's names correctly. Kirsten sold some books to Powell's and donated the ones that Powell's didn't want. That's a good idea. Powell's City of Books here in Portland. We have several locations. You can actually go on their website and you can scan the barcodes or the codes on your books to see if it's something that they'll purchase before you troop down there. So that can be helpful. What other thoughts do folks have about books? Let's see. Yes, buy nothing is mentioned again. That's okay, Kyle. Technical difficulties. We understand that you can be seen but not heard. Wendy took some books to the book vault in Beaverton. That's awesome. And Sue says Powell's looked through 6 bags of books and took only half a bag and gave just a little bit under $10. So she just donates them to the library now.
What
Yeah.
happens if you like the look of books?
And there's nothing wrong with that. Can you tell me a bit more about that, though?
So I do have maybe two different bookshelves, but they're kind of separated into categories. And some of the covers, some I've gone to Powell's and just bought a book on sale because of the cover. Not necessarily ever reading it because it was just really appealing. So I have, it's almost like an art form. And I find that hard to get rid of some of those that I've collected already.
I understand that. I'm wondering, do you have enough space to display the books so that you can enjoy them and people who visit you can enjoy them? Or do you feel like you have too many to safely display?
I have a very small house and I, like I said, I have two bookcases right now. Um, there's another third spot where I have books, and I'm finding that I probably need another bookcase. But then that's why I'm here, because maybe I don't need another bookcase. Maybe I need to learn how to let go of some of those that that I bought just on a whim.
I know it can be really tough, but instead of increasing your storage space for books, maybe think about right sizing and trading off when you bring a new one in, kind of the one in, one out rule.
I
keep
liked what Kayla said about having a parameter of I've got,
it.
so I could do that. I have two bookcases, and when that's full, I need to go to my little library and give some books.
Yeah, because somebody else will think those books are beautiful too and will enjoy them and appreciate them. I don't know if other folks too have seen people turning books into art, kind of carving the pages. So kind of flipping this around into a circle. Let's say this were a bigger book and they cut it out and it looks like a Christmas tree or a cat's face. And they actually paint the pages. I don't know if you've seen that, but that seems to be a trend right now. People doing uh, creative reuse projects with old books, which is really neat. Let's see, we've got some more comments in the chat here. Kayla says that art books can be donated to Scrap PDX, which is a local nonprofit. That's great. Gloria says for newer books, I go to the bookstore and take photos of the ones that look interesting and then get them from the library. I love that. Very sustainable, Gloria. And let's see, Jane says that she gives and donates books easily, and you can use the donation on your taxes. She says 50 cents for a paperback and $1 for a hardback book, and no one questions that valuation. Thank you, Jane. That's a great practical tip. Julia, yes, the ROI, the return on investment of selling books is very low. So she typically tries to target her donating thoughtfully and locally, like the Buy Nothing groups, for example, or donating a block of books of a similar theme. And she markets them in her description to get other people's imaginations going. I love the efforts that you're going to, Julia, to rehome the books. That's great. Okay, Heather says there's a cookbook store on Northeast Alberta and it's great. And she mostly checks them out from the library. Melissa says books feel like they're part of her, holding things that you can't hold as well as in my mind, and that if I let them go, I'll lose that part of my knowledge. Geez, yes, sometimes the library has them, sometimes. Understand that, Melissa. Sometimes books, we can consider them as friends. We could consider them as part of our identity. Also, that knowledge that we have acquired or that we want to acquire someday or one day. There can be a lot of emotional ties to books. Absolutely. What other thoughts do folks have about books or questions or resources? A couple things that haven't been mentioned yet are that you can also donate books to prisons so that inmates can read them. And there's a program called Books for Africa too, where the books get shipped overseas to Africa for folks to enjoy them as well. So there's different programs that try to circulate books and get them to people who might not have easy access. And don't worry, we'll put resources in the email that we send out after this, probably early next week. Are y'all ready for me to pick another item out of the mystery box? All right, thanks for chiming in about books. Let's see what we have in here. Ooh, something that might tempt Oliver is a bundle of yarn. I don't know if anybody in here is a crafty person, has any arts or craft supplies that you may or may not be using. I see some hands waving. Ah, so tell me about that. Tell me about your challenges. Tell me about resources that you've donated to that you feel good about.
I just packed up a box full of craft supplies to send to the grandkids. They're out in Arkansas, so since they're not here now to do crafts with them, I'm sending an entire box, and I just finished packing it up.
Oh,
Not sure what it's
excellent.
gonna cost. And then I have a box that I'm putting aside for, I think it's that Scrap PDX or wherever you take other craft supplies.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm trying to downsize, and so yeah, I'm trying to figure out where it all goes. And it's hard to let go of the crafty stuff. And I have a whole shelf full of tons of fabric for quilting, so that I'm
Mhm.
not dealing with yet.
We hear that a lot. We did an estate clean out after a couple had passed away, and there was an entire room in the basement full of fabric. we donated 2 truckfuls to Reclaim It, which is a nonprofit in Portland, and they had to have a fire sale on fabric because there was so much coming in, but they appreciated it at the same time.
I did want to mention too, we did a Ask the Organizer recently about craft rooms and art supplies. So maybe we can include that link in that blog post. But while we're continuing the talk about boundaries, one tip I really liked from that talk was kind of limiting your current projects. I think that can be really overwhelming when you're looking around your crafting space and you just see things in progress. Maybe they're getting mixed together. So I think being really clear about maybe this bin or this basket, this shelf, these are my current projects. And if it gets too full, maybe it's time to finish one or release it.
I love that idea, Kayla. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, we will put a link to the recording from the Ask the Organizer and to the blog about craft supplies and craft rooms. We had a comment in the chat from Jillia sharing a resource for those who are in the Seattle area. There's a reuse craft store and tool libraries. Take some things like brewing and winemaking supplies. That's really good to know. Thank you. I know another not local nonprofit that we love to partner with, Rosehaven. They will take a certain amount of art and craft supplies for their guests to use while they're there at the day shelter. Anyone else have any other local resources or specific challenges around arts and craft supplies? All right, it's crickets. So I'll go ahead and I'll choose our next item out of the box. All right, so speaking of unfinished projects, this is what this paint can represents. Um, Kayla, do you want to speak a little bit more to unfinished projects, or does anybody, I'm sure nobody in this Zoom room has any unfinished projects ever, right?
Ho, ho, ho.
Something I feel like that accumulates a lot for me is when you have like a new piece of furniture you assemble or something kind of hardware related, those little extra bags of extra pieces, and that can add up quickly. So I use like a bead organizer box to kind of at least separate those items by category. Like here's the screws, the nails, etc. And if there's something in there that's just really bizarre, I know I'm not going to use it. I can safely let that go. Habitat for Humanity also takes even used household items like paint or random bags of hardware. So that's a good resource to keep it out of the landfill.
Absolutely. And you don't have to keep those random bits and bobs that come from furniture assembly or something that you might purchase and you don't know what they go to, or they're just extra just in case. Like, we give you our full blessing and permission to let those go. And Jillia says nuts, bolts, and bits can go straight to metal recycling. Yes, good tip.
Can I say something?
Of course.
I think what I do is I label what they belong to in case I had to take a crib apart and I couldn't find the special tool to take it apart. It wasn't just a normal Allen wrench. And I kicked myself for not knowing what to use to take that thing up because we couldn't get it out of the room until we took it apart. So I label things now and then I put them in the box so I know what they go to.
That's a really great piece of advice. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. Something that we will have our clients do if they have a lot of projects that are in progress or future projects is we'll have them make a list and then estimate how long they think each project will take and kind of add up all that time. And it can be really eye-opening and shocking. And oftentimes it's more time than we all have left on planet Earth. I mean, none of us knows how long we have, but if it's going to take 100 years to finish these projects, most of us won't be here that long. So it can really force people to get intentional about what's truly important to them and focus on those projects and give themselves permission to let the rest go or hire somebody to do them if they're worth doing, if you feel they're worth doing. So, question in the chat, does Habitat for Humanity also take hand tools? Yes, absolutely they do. Yeah, they take power tools as well. And there's also the Rebuilding Center if you're on the east side of town.
Another
Anybody? Oh, go ahead, Kayla.
Another tip we like to use for just in case items, maybe it's like items or supplies for a project that you might get to one day, is we have something we refer to called the 2020 rule, where if you can replace an item in less than 20 minutes for less than $20, it's okay to just let that go, kind of free up that space.
Thank you. That's a really great tip to help folks remember. And Julia shared a resource in Seattle for mixing old paint into new colors. Yes. And we can do that for now in Portland. I think the program might be ending through Metro at the end of this calendar year, but there is a website called paintcare.com, I think, or paintcare.org, and we'll put that in our notes after this so people can find another resource after the end of December. Any other thoughts or challenges about unfinished projects? Okay, I'm going to dive into this box again, see what comes out. Oh, it's our grandmother's china. Or maybe our parents or great-grandparents. Okay, Melissa asked if we can write out the 2020 rule. Kayla, would you feel comfortable putting that in the chat? And we'll give full credit to the 2020 rule that was created by the minimalists. Oh. Does anybody have china, either their own or inherited, and you just don't know what to do with it and you don't use it on a daily basis? Yeah, I see some hands going up. Thoughts on china? Let's talk about it. So Jill says, if you love it, use it. If you don't, give it to someone who will. Absolutely.
How do you do that? How do you know who to give it to that's going to use it? I mean, I have some china that I think is really pretty. I've had it for years and years and I love it, but I don't use it because it's not very practical. But I would give it to somebody, but I wouldn't know who to give it to.
Are you part of a Buy Nothing group, Jean?
No.
It's really easy to sign up. There's a website, it's a nonprofit, and it's hyper local. So you put in your zip code and it's even neighborhood by neighborhood sometimes, depending on the population, but it's about giving things away for free. And so you could post pictures of your china and you can tell the story behind it and see if anyone in our local community is interested. Otherwise, consider donating. Very little china. We have a previous recording with Dave Smith, who's from the Cedar Mill area. He and his brother have a company called Smith Brothers China, and they have, I think, over 45,000 pieces of china in their Etsy resale shop, and they specialize in china. And so we interviewed Dave, and he gave us all this advice on whether or not our china has value and if we could sell it, what to look for. But simple designs, things that can go in the dishwasher. So this, unfortunately, with this gold edging, can't go in the microwave, can't go in the dishwasher. So unfortunately, it's not very marketable, especially people from younger generations don't want this because it's high maintenance, can't put it in the dishwasher. Or people have inherited multiple sets of china from both sides of the family, and now they've got 6 sets of china, and no one from the younger generations wants them. And it can be really tricky, but you can also donate these to arts and crafts places and people will make them into mosaics. People can also reuse, like using a cream pitcher as a vase, for example. And I'm curious to hear what other people have done with their china as well.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Something else to think about if you do have a big collection, maybe you've got 12 place settings and you've right sized to a smaller space, or you just want to, keep one teacup and saucer that you can display to honor your grandmother's china without having to keep the entire collection or all 12 sets. And Jill writes, when donating, there are folks who find it in the donation store so you can donate things there. And she saw a YouTuber who bought her old tea set and was in love with it. That's a great story. Thank you, Jill. And Jillia says she's seen cake or tea stands made out of old china in a creative reuse market. So that's great. And then we put Dave Smith's contact information in here. So if you feel like you do have some china that might potentially be valuable, um, he specializes in like Old English china, for example. You can text him pictures and let him know I've got this many sets. It's in good condition. Something to look for, it's called crazing. And that's when the glaze starts to get those fine lines in there and it kind of looks spiderwebby or cobwebby. That's something we don't want and that can hurt resale value. There's also replacements.com, but you do have to pack things up and ship them to them. So my understanding is you don't get a whole lot of monetary value from selling them that way. But somebody might be looking for maybe the gravy boat got broken on Thanksgiving and they just want to replace that gravy boat and they find yours on replacements.com and you make their day.
Great. Thank you.
Of course. And Jane asked, does this conundrum include inherited old silver plate items? Yes, good question, Jane. It certainly does. There's not much of a market, if any, for those silver plate items. If things are sterling, there's more of a market, and you can always sell them to be melted down. And Dave Smith of Smith Brothers China does that. So that's something that you could reach out to him about if you're interested. Maybe you've got some old scratched up family silver and nobody wants to take the time to polish it and take care of it. That could be one way to let it go. And Kayla says teacups and teapots can be used as a small plant pot. And Kayla's used she's seen homemade candles poured into teacups. That's a great reuse idea. Thanks, Kayla. What other challenges or resources do you all have for China? Okay. Let's see. Sue says if silver is used daily, it does not need to be polished. That's good to know. So if you have it, use it, basically, right? And Jillia, thank you for attending. We appreciate your participation and hopefully you'll come back next month. All right, I'm going to dive into the box again. Let's see what we've got. Goodness. Goodness, goodness, goodness. I've got, I don't know if you can see these very well, these old black and white photos. And I have no idea who these people are. Does anyone else have this problem? Yeah, I see some hands going up and some nods. Yes. Kayla, do you want to jump in and talk about photos?
Yes, and yeah, I would love to start with talking about inherited photos. I've received a lot of those myself. I think since family members know I'm more sentimental, I also love photography, so I've ended up with many boxes of photos that have been passed down, and I do have hopes and dreams of getting everything scanned and digitized one day, but in the meantime, I feel like some of my tips are, with gifting, the joy of the gift is in the exchange. So we always try to encourage folks, just because you have inherited or received something does not obligate you to keep it or keep all of it. So what I started by doing is going through the photos and kind of identifying what has meaning to me. So for me, that is removing duplicates, photos of scenery. The things that are more impactful for me are photos of people or ones that I can label, like go back and say, this is my great aunt so and so, things that are a little more tangible than just here's a bunch of trip photos from a distant relative. So once I kind of identified these are my keepers, these are my favorites, then from there I kind of could make categories that make sense to me. So for now, I have my system in gallon Ziplocs. That way I can easily label. So I kind of divided by sides of the family. So I have a bag for each side of my family. I have one for my parents, their wedding, kind of photos that are special to me. And then I have another one for my own childhood. And I have kind of limited myself to one box. This is my photo box for physical photos. I found this at an antique store. It's a little kind of records box.
Super
And
cute.
at least this is a way to keep them safe so they're not scattered in like multiple locations. I know that if I need a specific photo, I can go to that box. And it's really easy to just slide in the bags. So that's kind of what I've done with photos. Digital photo organizing is a whole other category, but at least for physical, it's really easy to find what I need. And when I'm limited to my box, I can go through and kind of pare down if I get more in the future.
Thank you, Kayla, for sharing your box and your great tips. And we did 2 or 3 years ago, we had the family archivists on as guests, and we did a deep dive into photo organizing with them. And they're professional photographers, and this is what they specialize in. So they're able to take entire collections, both digital and paper, and turn chaos into a beautifully curated collection for folks. So we're happy to right size with folks too, but we can get you to the experts if you want to do like a deeper dive, or if you need help with scanning, or maybe you want a professional photograph of a three-dimensional object to remember it by so that you can let that object go. Yeah. Let's see, we've got some comments in the chat. Carrie says, yes, you cannot recycle photo paper. That's correct because of the chemicals in the paper. Thank you for sharing that, Carrie. Sue says nobody in her family wanted the old photos. I'm sorry, Sue, that's sad. She does not have children and no one in her family wants them. So, Sue, I don't know how old your photos are, but if they're from the 1970s or older, Scrap PDX, a local nonprofit, will take them and people can use them in arts and crafts projects. So that's one resource to consider for old photos, especially if you don't know who's in the photos and future generations don't want them. Elizabeth inherited at least 5 boxes of photos going back to great-great-grandparents. Oof, yeah, that's a lot. Okay, and Jean put the family archivist contact information in here. Thank you, Jean. And someone said, and Melissa says, someone said that the county historical museums are sometimes interested. Yes, you could definitely reach out. There are also veterans associations. If you have photos of loved ones who were in service, or if you have, some kind of connection to a small town, for example, yes, you can always reach out and contact that museum or that historical society for sure. Or maybe scan them into ancestry.com too, if you know who people are, and you never know, future generations then can go back and connect to those. Um, Jean Harkin is asking, can old negatives be put in the trash? Are they toxic? Yes, they can be put in the trash. They do contain small amounts of silver, is my understanding. So if you had a ton of really large negatives, like X-ray type things, people actually You can sell those, I think, by the weight and get some money for them, but I think you'd have to have an awful lot, like be a retired dentist or something like that. Carrie says, will you talk about sources to view old movie film reels like 4-inch or 16 millimeter? So, Carrie, the family archivist can also help with transferring items to different formats. So they can do all of that. If you want to transfer, 8 tracks, it could be sound, it could be video, and you can digitize that and then preserve it. There's also a company called forever.com where you can buy online storage. You can also ship photos and different mediums to them to be converted into digital. And when you buy your storage space with Forever, you pay once and then you own it for 100 years past the day that you die. And you can pass it down to your loved ones by just adding their email addresses. And then Forever converts your photos into whatever the next medium is going to be because we don't know, right? And things evolve over time. So at no charge, they'll continue to convert your photos, your documents, your files for you to share with your loved ones after you pass. Or even while you're still here, you can share them with friends and family. So that's a really cool resource. And you can also record your voice on that. So you can tell us a story that goes with the photo, and then your loved ones can listen to that kind of a digital and visual, audio and visual photo album. So, Carrie, I hope that helps a little bit. And I know Gloria is on the call and she specializes in recording people's personal stories, their life stories. Like, not video though, Gloria, right? It's your company's reel to reel and it's their audio stories that you capture and edit. So, Gloria is a good resource too. Maybe, Gloria, if you'll put your information in the chat so people can reach out to you if they like. Yeah, Connie, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I think this is my biggest problem. I inherited 16 banker boxes of family photos. When my mother was moving and I got them because I'm the oldest, and some of them are 8 millimeter films also. And I was interested when you commented about how, Kayla, you took and got rid of all the scenery. My dad did that, but it was about the turn of the century when National Geographic was looking for scenic pictures from the 50s and 60s of national parks and public buildings. And we had a huge box that thus got tossed in the trash. And my heart sinks every time I think of that. So there's usually somebody out there. I know that there's an organization related to military that like to take photos of military. Going back to the forever.com, do they also do video and in reel to reel or only still photos?
They do video as well. And there's also a great local company in Southeast Portland. It's called Family Keepsake Video. And they'll even come pick them up from your house and then they'll go digitize them and then bring your originals back to you and bring you a disc or a thumb drive or whatever medium you would like items converted into. And we've worked with them a number of times for our clients and they've been really great. And it's a small family-owned business. I think they've been in business over 20 years. Family Keepsake Video.
Is that also one that would change it to the next? Is it like forever.com where they continue to update the medium?
No, I don't believe that they offer cloud storage like forever.com does, but like let's say you had 4,000 photos you wanted scanned and you had some old 8 millimeter film reels that you wanted converted or digitized, they can take all of that and digitize it for you.
Oh, then you could probably go to forever.com and put those in there.
Yeah, you could upload them. If you send it to Forever, they'll upload them directly to your account. But with the other company, you could choose your own cloud storage to upload them to. We do recommend, and the family archivists recommend too, that you keep your photos stored in 3 different places just as a backup. So Kayla has her box of physical photos, but what about wildfires or floods or natural disasters? it could be a good idea to scan those in and back them up. I know, Kayla, you're also one of four siblings, so maybe there's, one copy of a photo and you want to be able to share it with the whole family or all your siblings. So digitizing things can make that easier as well, easier to share things.
And what do you think about YouTube? I mean, like my mother's obituary is actually in her eulogy is on YouTube because it
Oh.
was put on by the church where the service was. I don't know how long they'll stay there, if they're there forever. I don't know if there's any private, YouTube is pretty public. So I don't know if there's any private, side rooms in YouTube or anything like that.
You can create a private YouTube channel that you could use for family videos and things. The only thing is my understanding is that, YouTube could potentially in the future take those videos down or you might lose them. So you might want to back them up in another location. I know with forever.com, they don't compress your photos or videos. They stay at full size because sometimes you might post them online like on Facebook and you go to grab them later and then the resolution has really shrunk down and the quality of the photo has been changed and compressed. Also, if you upload them to certain sites, you technically no longer own that photo. It's owned by the site that you upload it to. So I think these are just some things to think through and be aware of.
Does that include forever.com? They own it?
No, actually, that's one nice thing about forever.com is that you own it for 100 years past the day that you die. And I guess that's the legal limit, the longest amount of time that they can sell a
Wow.
product for, apparently. That's why they chose that 100 years past the day that you pass.
It sounds like no matter what service you use, you still need to do some sorting. I mean, I've got a box for the 70s and one for the 80s and one for the 90s. But it sounds like otherwise they would all just be lumped. I mean, they would scan them in as they're in the box. Is that right?
Right. So you put them into bags like Kayla has and label them.
Uh-huh.
So when you purchase, I've used forever.com myself, and when you purchase the storage, they'll send you a box and it has the bags, it has the labels, has everything that you need. And so you organize them into the bags and label them, and then that's how they scan them in into your forever.com account. And there are other services too that are similar, but I don't think they offer quite all of the features. And just to let everybody here know, we do not get any kind of commissions. We don't use affiliate links. We just recommend products and services that we know and trust from experience. So please just know that we try to be transparent and we don't get any kind of commission from recommending anything.
And two other questions about forever.com. Uh, can you talk to live people or is it all emails and messages back and forth? And is there a limit to the size of your storage?
You can talk to live people, so you are actually given what's called an ambassador when you create your account, when you join. And so that person is usually locally based. So my ambassador, her name was Debbie, and she's based in Redmond, Oregon. And so I can reach out to her anytime with questions like, how do I do this? Or I'd like to do that. And then there's no limit to the amount of storage, but I think you would just have to like purchase more storage if you run out and you want to add more photos.
Well, that's helpful. What's interesting was we went through one box together as a sibling group of 5 of us.
Mhm.
And I was just dumbfounded and fascinated by what people found important to them was not what I would have anticipated was important to them. For example, one of my brothers wanted all the photos of my ex-husband because he remembers Uncle Chicken, now. Why, I don't know, but that would have not been anything that would have even come across my mind. So it's really hard. I think the idea of just putting everything up there and then letting everybody have access to it is a great idea. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And sometimes families do that physically. And we've got the holidays coming up. So maybe you've got 5 boxes of photos in the attic and you want to bring them down and spread them out on tables and tell family members that they can't leave until they, fill their gallon-sized bag of photos, for example. It works with other items too, by the way. And Kayla says digital photo frames that rotate through the images can be a great way to display and enjoy a large collection of photos. Yeah, absolutely, Kayla. Thank you. And Wendy asks, how about slides? Yes, a lot of us have slides. Unfortunately, those cannot be recycled. And it's nice to have a light box to be able to see them because they're so small, and maybe, an eye loop as well.
Is there a good company that can digitize slides?
Yeah, so Family Keepsake Video can do that, forever.com can do that, and then there are other companies out there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes they charge, by volume. If you have 50 or fewer, it's more expensive per slide, but if you have a larger amount, then it's less expensive the more slides you have, for example.
Okay.
Yep, and the Family Archivist can also do that as well.
I'm wondering what ideas people have for displaying their photos, maybe some creative ways other than just a frame on the wall. Like I knew a client once who had like 4 small frames in her entryway, and once a month she would enjoy looking through her photo collection and rotating them out. But I'm just curious if anyone else does anything creative to display their photos.
We just took 125 pictures from my husband. We had set it up for his memorial
Mhm.
and put it into one of the books from Shutterfly.
Nice.
So I share it with relatives when they come, but otherwise it was just on, the site. So we put it into a little booklet through Shutterfly.
That's a great idea. And Jill says some people have made lampshades out of slides. That's really creative. Something I've seen, Kayla, I don't know if it was on social media or at a client's house actually, but kind of a little clothesline with little miniature clothespins and hanging the photos off of that on the wall. And then those are easy to rotate out too. Melissa has a large table with a glass top and may rotate the photos that are underneath it. That's a great idea. I know a lot of people have glass on top of their desks too. That's a great way to display photos. Any other questions about photos or thoughts or resources?
Not a question, but a resource. If people have the time and desire to uh, take slides and digitize them, I discovered when I was wandering through the, I don't know what it's called. It's the Hillsborough Library has a library of things that you can rent, or not rent, take out. And one of the items I saw on the shelves was a device for digitizing slides. And I promised myself I would go back and take it out when I got a clearing of time. It'd be probably a pretty slow way of doing it, but at least it's an option and a start. And there may be it may have that library may have other devices too, for all I know.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that resource, Lorna. And it's good to see you again. And yeah, it's a great free way to digitize them too. Wonderful. Any other thoughts about photos? Okay, I'm going to dive into the box. I think we have time for 1 or 2 more items here. Does anyone have a burning sentimental item that we haven't talked about yet that you want to throw out there? Oh, and Heather adds that she uses an old postcard holder for displaying photos, and people visiting enjoy looking at them. That's great. Ah, Elizabeth wants to talk about letters. And then we've got a picture in the chat. Oh, nice. Displaying some photos there. Oh, jewelry, furniture, and art and record albums. Okay, we'll have to move quickly here, but we can do this. We'll start at the top with letters. Kayla, do you want to share some thoughts about letters, or does anyone who's here want to jump in?
One thing I've done with some old letters is just take a photo of them. That way I can always reference them. I have a whole folder in Google Photos for this, and it's really easy to either take a picture or also with your phone you can scan it. So it's a bit of a clearer image, but that's a tough one. I feel like handwriting is really sentimental and special. I've seen too those small photo albums. People slip the letters in there so it's easy to flip through. So it's a bit more of like a scrapbook style. And that might be a little more easy to access than just a loose pile or them kind of scattered throughout your house.
Absolutely. Great tips. Elizabeth has so many letters that her dad wrote during World War II and also her mom's letters for decades. That's really special. Some veterans organizations might be interested in those letters from World War II, so that could be something to look into. Jill says if letters are sentimental, they can be framed as art and rotated. And I remember, Jill, do you want to tell us about your special birthday placemats?
I
If you
don't,
feel
it
comfortable.
wasn't me. It must have been another person. Placemats?
Yeah, I thought maybe you had a milestone birthday and your friends took some old letters and laminated them and turned them into placemats. Or
Oh,
maybe
I think it was a friend. I didn't do it. Yeah, yeah. I think she did that for a 50th because
okay,
it was
so
a long
maybe you
time ago
told
for
us
me.
about it. Yeah. I know letters can be tough, but there are free scanning apps that you can use on your phone. Genius Scan is really simple and easy to use, and it's available for free on both iPhones and Android phones. We might have to have a whole nother Ask the Organizer event about some of these other items here. And Jean Harkin says dolls. She has a group of old dolls, and the oldest two. Okay, sorry. Carrie says, what was the app? It's called Genius Scan, and it's free. I use it all the time, even to scan long documents like tax returns and things. Okay, going back to dolls. Jean Harkin has a group of old dolls, and the oldest two have China faces. One is from 1884. Where can I find homes for them if no family member wants them? Dolls can be tricky. There are specialists and appraisers who specialize just in dolls because they're a very specialized thing. Unfortunately, my understanding is the market for dolls is it's pretty low right now, not much market demand, but you may have an exception to that. Maybe one of your dolls, like the one from 1884, could be special. I would reach out to O Gallery, which is a local auction house, and it's O-Gallery, but it doesn't end in a Y, it ends in IE. And they've been around for over 40 years, and they have appraisers on staff, and they each specialize in different things like artwork, antiques. They even sell like antique firearms, costume jewelry, real jewelry, all kinds of different things. So that might be a good place to start, Jean.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and also for our person who was interested in talking about, oh, jewelry, furniture, and art, Melissa. Thoughts about jewelry. There is Consignment Northwest. If it's real jewelry and something you're looking at consigning, they'll take a look and let you, or maybe you're not sure if it's real jewelry or costume, that they have a person there who can take a look and let you know. And you can consign it there. There's O Gallery. If you have costume jewelry that you'd like to donate, sometimes memory care units are a good place. Anything kind of tactile that can be used for dress up, for example. There's also the Hillsborough Public Library. Twice a year, they do their big book sale, but they also sell costume jewelry, and the proceeds benefit the library. And then the furniture and art, oh my gosh, we have to do like a whole separate session. Gloria, record albums. There are some places close by, like Exile Records, which is on Canyon Road, Canyon and 87th. That could be a place to take records to evaluate them to see if they have monetary value. Clothing. Gosh, Maybe we'll talk about records for a second, then clothing, and then we'll have to wrap up for tonight. But does anyone else have thoughts about record albums?
Well, there are devices, again, I mean, my mother got one to, you can play the album and digitize it with the device. Either put it onto a CD or put it onto a thumb drive. Again, that's a slow process, but
But at least it's available. And
Yeah.
The problem is the record album covers. I mean, those are works of art. Those are sort of heart things.
yeah.
And that's the other piece about record albums. I know I'm just kind of a basket case when it comes to, but I do have a turntable and I do listen to them from time to time.
that's great. And vinyl is definitely popular. Younger people are buying that again. And if you have beautiful album covers, could you consider framing them, perhaps?
And liner notes. I mean, those are wonderful.
Yeah. Jill says records are hot right now. CDs are going out since streaming is happening. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about clothing. I've got a little children's shirt in here. Da, 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 da. What do folks have? What are your ideas about clothing, real quick? Jane says they had some family costume jewelry made into Christmas ornaments. That's really creative. One for each person in the family who knew the person. That's a really great idea. I know, Kayla, we just did a deep dive into local clothing consignment options, and you don't get a lot of value for consigning clothes unless it's, like a really expensive piece of clothing, high-end designer type stuff. Do you want to share some other local resources, Kayla?
See, yeah, I want to know specifically for children's clothing. It's a consignment option called Once Upon a Child. So that's an option if you want to get some money back. They do take used as well. And then for adults clothing, there's Buffalo Exchange, Plato's Closet, lots of smaller boutiques. I know if you are wanting to do it virtually, there's an app and a website called The Real Real. And they specialize in more higher end, but it's a nice option because you can ship your items to them directly. They send you a shipping label and they handle all the selling for you. Yeah, there's so many boutiques and consignment clothing, especially in Portland.
Yes, I know there's one called Posh Northwest in Lake Oswego. There's also one where you can mail things in called Thread Up. And I know Leilani on our team uses that one. She said it's very easy to use. But I think with clothing, we might want to kind of lower our expectations for what we might get back for it, especially if it's falls under that fast fashion category, you know. I know shelters, you can donate clothing there that's in season and in good repair. Men's clothing seems harder to come by as far as donations go, so they're typically looking for more of that. And then Kirsten put in the chat Northwest Children's Outreach for foster kids. Thank you, great resource. Well, sorry to just kind of skim the surface with clothing. This went by really fast. I wish we had another hour to talk about more sentimental items and more resources, but thank you for coming tonight. I hope that this was helpful to you and that you got some great resources for what you're working on. Next month, we're going to be here the first Tuesday of the month again, and we'll be talking about maintaining organization. What are some things that we can do to keep our systems in place when life goes haywire and we feel like we're drowning, or just on a day-to-day basis? How do you keep a space organized once it is organized? Or even if it's not organized, just how do you maintain things? So we'll see you next month, and thank you again for being here. Have a great night, everyone.